Hello everyone and welcome to Pyanodons Mods. This is Otaku Showboat and today we will be discussing zinc processing yet again. If you have been enjoying these tutorials thus far, please be sure to do all of the engagement and social stuff below the video. This series is of course supported by my patrons at patreon.com/otakushowboat, and of course you can support Pyanodons Mods development at patreon.com/pyanodon. So, zinc. Glorious, wonderful, beautiful zinc. If you saw the nickel processing update, there'll be a few things that are similar to this. So, zinc. We'll begin today by looking at the text for zinc. Zinc, level 1 at Red Science, will give you access to processing of plates from grade 2. Plates directly into grade 2. That is your total extent at Red Science. At Green Science, you can actually make your first molten zinc and do your hot air casting of molten zinc from grade 3, as long as you have the heavy oil for it. As long as you have the heavy oil for it. At Blue Science, you get access to the high grade and concentrate, as well as a powdered zinc plate recipe that is direct plates. But as you'll see shortly, this is actually balanced and it does increase the amount of plates over the previous process despite not being a hot air casting process. So we will have a good look at that as well. And of course, there's the whole process going all the way up to high grade at zinc stage 3. And then, of course, at utility science, you get access to reduction and sintering processes. So let us begin at the very beginning. We'll first just have a look at the outputs to see that they do scale. They do scale as you go along. Pretty big bonus at all the way at high grade versus the previous steps. This, of course, is high grade, this is reduction, and this is sintering. This is the concentrate stuff. This is the powder, direct plate casting. This is the grade 3 molten. This is the grade 2 casting, and then this is the direct plate casting. So direct plate casting, bearing in mind that you do need to have syngas to actually mine zinc to begin with, is the standard 10-to-1 ratio that you see throughout the entirety of the Pi suite. You need Red Science to get here, so you're gonna have access to this process immediately as soon as you start needing zinc. When will you start needing zinc? Well, as it turns out, zinc gets consumed consistently when you're trying to get into your circuit 2s. You need this stuff known as zinc acetate as one of the consumers of zinc in that process. And yeah, let's just say you're going to need a lot of zinc acetate, and as you go on towards production science and utility science and space science, you're gonna need a lot of zinc, It's one of those ones that's like way, way, way up there in its total usage among all of the various plates. But it does come a little bit later on in the grand scheme of things when you really start spiking on your demand, depending on how many circuit 2s you're planning on making per second. If you want to make several circuit 2s per second as soon as you get access to being able to make circuit 2s, well, then you're gonna need a lot of zinc processing, because you're not gonna have access to quite enough oomph on your plates, to say the least, to make everything you need to make out of it. So, also, Ollie says hello. Ollie says hello. He's around. To start off this process, the main thing here that a lot of people hate is the fact that you do need to spend iron to process zinc. This is not as bad as it looks, to be completely honest, but it is pretty significant early on. This is a slight nudge. Let's call it a slight nudge to not do mass scale early processing of zinc. This here is 4.5 iron plates per second when you don't have any productivity and you're not doing molten casting, like hot air molten casting of sticks, which does exist now, by the way. Um, this pushes you to do more efficient processing of your ore because as you go down the chain, this doesn't change. It's always going to be 9 sticks, but you'll get progressively more and more plates of zinc out for that expenditure of the sticks. So just think of it in light of, okay, this is just going to mean that I need to do more complex processing as I go along of zinc. You're going to need so much zinc that you're going to want to continue going down this chain, even though it is very, very expensive on the outside inputs. It's a necessary component of the pie suite. Like this is just the one of the main boss battles, I guess you could say, of the pie suite is just getting enough zinc to complete the game and having to deal with the fact that you're spending iron and you're spending all of those outside inputs to go into high grade. So this gives you 4.5 plates in the end after you ball mill with iron sticks to get grade 1. You have to deal with soil and stone. And then impact crush that grade 1 into grade 2, and you have to deal with the sand out of here. And you can cast that into 4.5 out of 15. That's That's on its output. Good enough, considering that this is what you get access to at Red Science. But are you going to need zinc at Red Science? No. You are not going to need zinc at Red Science. Zinc can go into green. Green Science, glorious green science, which gives you access to the molten casting of grade 3. And this is how far you can get. Basically, this is the max that you can do at your green science when you initially start needing zinc to make your circuits. So for your 4.5 iron plates plus 15 zinc ore, you'll be able to hydroclassify that grade 2 with water to get your grade 3. It's very simple. It is one extra little step here. Just place some hydroclassifiers and you're good. No extra real outside inputs here. However, you do need to have heavy oil for this. Now, in a standard pie game, you can steam crack crude oil into heavy oil, and you're good. In a pie block game, it's a little more difficult than that. It's a 3-to-1 ratio at minimum for around this time to get tar into heavy oil. It gives you a whole bunch of coke as well on top of that. Or you can do tar to crude oil to steam crack to heavy, but that's not as worth it because you don't even end up with the extra coke, which is really the big deal out of that. You want that coke in that style of playthrough. But in a normal pie game, you are able to steam crack crude to get heavy for this. So assuming that you have access to crude oil, which let's hope that you do, you can absolutely do this process, and it's pretty simple. You spend your borax with sand castings on the actual casting part of it. Note, this is hot air casting, so this is 25% more plates uh, by spending the hot air on this step. To get your zinc, absolutely always do hot air casting of your molten zinc. Absolutely always do the molten casting of this. This is all you can do at your green science. But let's just, for example, say that you have done vat-brain biocomputing to unlock the process all the way up to high grade. Well, our next step requires adding, well, our next stopping point requires 2 more steps, and it is not molten casting. So, if you have done vat-brain biocomputing, this is actually pretty tempting of a process because it does not require any outside inputs to get up to here. It's very tempting for this. So for here, we then ball mill our grade 3 to get grade 4 and a bit of coal dust that we'll have to deal with. And we can screen our grade 4 into powdered zinc and additional grade 2 that loops back into our hydroclassifier step to net us a bunch of powdered zinc that gives us 12.86 plates out. That is more than our grade 3 molten process. That's a pretty significant gain if you can unlock the blue science level of zinc processing, and it requires no outside inputs to do this. This is just a direct upgrade. This is very tempting to do if you're not willing to spend the outside inputs yet. Now, from here, we get into spending of outside inputs. So from here, we go all the way up to this zinc concentrate from our powdered zinc. So this requires a jig. So if you have done vat-brain biocomputing, the earliest you can think of doing this is after getting stainless steel, which is, again, why this powdered casting is so, like, really tempting to do. If you're done vat-brain biocomputing for chemical science and waited long enough to unlock this tech. It's several techs deep to get into this. Uh, or actually, it's like at least 2 techs deep to get into this. Because you need to pick up I think it's the mining machines 3 tech before you can actually get the individual blue science techs to unlock the stuffs here. Oh boy. So, yeah, this is where all the outside inputs also come into play. You'll take a jig to convert your powdered zinc with water and kerosene, which, yeah, I really hope that you have the low distillate recipe for kerosene at this point. I think that's another blue science tech, actually, to get that particular recipe. Uh, I could be wrong. I don't know all of the things off the top of my head, but I do know that it exists, and it's a very good kerosene recipe overall. Uh, this will give you zinc overflow, as well as tailings. The zinc overflow will be floated with cressylic acid. Oh boy, cressylic acid, nexylate phenol, creosote. Oh, this stuff. This stuff is just so awesome. It is a trace amount, though, but you'll see a little bit later. Ahem. We need a thing that uses cressylic acid, so you'll need a little bit more than what you're using here, because you're going to need Aerofloat 15, which, yeah, this stuff is an ingredient in Aerofloat 15. So, yeah, so from here we get our zinc pulp plus a zinc waste. The pulp 1 can get floated with creosote, not that bad, into a pulp stage 2. Creosote is just tar. Then we float again with Aerofloat 15. This stuff, with phosphorus pentasulfide and the cressylic acid and aromatics, to get into our pulp 3. You then need a grease table with grease through whatever method you want to use to get the grease, / have access to get the grease, as well as sodium hydroxide to make a purified zinc, as well as zinc overflow. That loops back to the beginning and adds in and does looping, and this is why Matrix Solver exists. The purified zinc can get classified into zinc concentrate and a trace amount of lead dust that you can do whatever you want with. I personally just void it from the face of existence. Now, this process, this step, I don't know why this step really exists, because you end up with zinc waste that you don't do anything with. If you stop at concentrate, you don't really have anything to do with the waste, and I'm just thinking of this right now because I've just now thought of something. I've just now thought of something, another permutation that I haven't put onto this yet, and that is going down the pulp 4 chain to high grade is another thing. So in the event that we don't use our zinc waste, which again I don't know why you wouldn't want to use your zinc waste, you could make molten out of the zinc concentrate by adding the heavy oil. This is a bonus overall compared to this process. Is it worth all these outside inputs? All of the logistics of these outside inputs? That's a not insignificant amount of kerosene. Um, maybe. So let's, for example, I'm going to copy this. Just hit a copy, do a paste, and do the ingredient input switch and do 15. Let's say, for example, you do this, and then take your waste and keep going to high grade. And then also do molten casting of the high grade. Oh, right, that exists already. So in this event, we end up with 34.47, which does fall right between. If I shift this up to the point where it exists in here, yeah, that falls right between the two things. So now that I have realized that this also is an option for you, this is an interesting option. Why? Why is this an interesting option? Because this will continue moving. If you have a overflow valve to kill excess waste, if you somehow don't supply enough filtration media to keep the pulp stage 4 processing into high grade, you're able to make up for that through the conversion of the concentrate. So there's a little bit of a cyclical thing here. If you process all of your zinc concentrate into pulp 4, which is the next step that increases your output, you do run a risk of potentially consuming too much filtration media in other processes and not having enough to keep this going, and you basically positive feedback loop your way down to 0 zinc by doing so. This process offers a way to make sure that that doesn't happen, but it does come at the cost of this. My suggestion would be to set this up as an emergency valve, quote unquote. Basically keep some advanced foundries, just a couple advanced foundries around that you can shove zinc concentrate into to make some molten zinc in the event that you don't end up with enough filtration media. This is more output than just the zinc concentrate and not doing anything with the waste at all. So definitely consider going this route, because all you need to process this waste effectively, you thicken it in a thickener with water, and then you just filter it with filtration media to get high grade, and you're basically done. It's just more heavy oil with more limestone and then borax sand castings into plates from here. So, what happens if we then want to make our zinc concentrate into additional grade 4? Well, this is one extra step, in which case we agitate our concentrate with lime, which is super simple to make, as well as soda ash regeneration solution, which is also really simple to make. It's saline water, water, and ash to make this stuff. So is it worth not doing this? No. However, again, the filtration media is a trap here, because if for whatever reason you don't feed this filtration media, there goes your production of filtration media because you'll run out of zinc. If somehow you don't supply this with filtration media, say you're using it all up through other processes, and you haven't prioritized your filtration media going into the zinc to keep the zinc flowing, you can end up in a situation where you've killed your zinc production and therefore also killed your filtration media. And how do you get out of that? Well, you do this right here. You make molten out of your concentrate as a means of escaping the death spiral here, the death loop, shall we say. So with those intricacies in mind, if for whatever, and of course I am going to say that the amounts of Aerofloat and Chrysylic are low enough here as like the hardest of the outside inputs that you need for this. Uh, they're low enough, and you use these in other processes. You use Aerofloat in so many other processes that, yeah, I'm just gonna say that it is always 100% going to be worth doing this. This is your. You need so much. You need so much zinc in the end to even reach the end that absolutely go into high grade. That it, without question go into high grade. Uh, you're not going to be thinking about doing the high grade though by the vat brain green science, just because like by the time you have the jig, you're pretty close to actual blue science anyway. So yeah, chances are you are in actual blue science or really close to it by the time you could even do this high grade processes thanks to the jig. So realistically speaking, if you vat brain blue science, you're here, and then once you are further in to your progression at the very minimum at stainless steel for the jig, um, this is a really big bonus going all the way up to the high grade processing as long as you are willing to make the Aerofloat, creosote, and chrysylic acid. And you can see how your iron now, your 4.5 iron plates, has gone really far to make a bunch of stuff. So at Utility Science, you get access to reduction and sintering, of which, generally speaking, and whenever you get access to both, it's never going to be particularly viable to just stop at reduction. You're always going to do reduction into sintering, but just for the sake of argument, if you were to stop at reduction, which is the same exact process as we've been seeing this entire time across most of these raw ore processing processes, sodium sulfate plus diesel plus pressured air to reduce your zinc, reduce your high grade zinc. Then throw that with some extra heavy oil plus limestone into a bunch of molten, into a bunch more plates, 67.5 for your 15 in. And then, of course, if you sinter from there by adding lime and syngas and pressurized air, you will end up with 87.75 plates for your 15 ore in, which is a lot. That's greater than 1 to 5. Like you're getting more than 5 plates per unit of zinc ore that you throw at this process, which is on the higher end of the outputs across the raw ore processing chains at Utility Science. It is on the higher end of the outputs, but you need it. You absolutely need it for zinc in particular. And considering that the outside inputs on high grade are relatively low volume, I would say that it's absolutely worth doing if you're willing to go through the effort of setting up the logistics of making these outside inputs. So, with all of that said, this little extra intricacy pointed out where you can just do zinc waste into high grade, as well as do the concentrate casting and how that helps you if you somehow run out of filtration media and need to kickstart the process again of making zinc to make filtration media. With all of those intricacies in mind, I would of course like to thank you all for watching. This has been Otaku Showboat. If you have been enjoying these videos thus far, please be sure to do all of the social and engagement stuff below the video. This series is of course supported by my patrons at patreon.com/otakushowboat, and you can also support Pyanodons mods development at patreon.com/Pyanodon. I will, of course, see you all on the next one.